This is Heartrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart. With your host, Terry Levine. Listen every week as Terry tackles the topics that will help you become a successful heart-centered entrepreneur. Be sure to read the blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog. Come back often and add this show to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also follow Terry on Twitter at MentorTerry and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terry Levine. And now here's Terry.
Welcome. This is Terry Levine from Heartrepreneur. I'm really glad that you've joined today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, I have an amazing guest with me. Before we get into the guest, just a couple things to keep in mind. Doing business heart to heart is really the only way to do business nowadays. You don't want to be transactional. You don't want to just get a new client, customer, or patient and then go hunting for someone else. You want to focus on your own client family members and to help them provide as much value as you possibly can. So today, we're here to provide value for you, and we encourage you to really deeply tune in and listen and be very conscious because there's going to be something in here for you. So I have with me today Tibor Nagy, and he is a former architect. And this is so interesting to make a shift from an architect, but he found back the way to get to his true self after moving abroad and experiencing some struggles and some difficulties in his life. And pay attention, because he was chasing a false definition of success. And I know many people have done that before. So after he woke up and realized this, he went on a personal development journey. He became dedicated to inspiring others to be true to themselves also and to awaken to the inner genius that lies within every single one of us. So there's a message in here for you already. And Tibor is a mindset coach. He's certified as an Erickson professional coach. And we'll talk about this a little today. He's the founder of Mindset Horizon, which is a coaching and a personal development company. And they foster transformation through mindset, transforming digital content, as well as coaching services. He also has his own podcast, so you may want to check that out. We'll tell you how to do that later, called the Mindset Horizon Podcast. So today we're really here to find out, how do you pursue your passion? How do you live your meaningful life? And how do you make this transition? So Tibor, welcome. Good to have you.
Hi, Terry. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited, as you mentioned, to provide value to your wonderful audience.
Well, I'm really excited to be with you because, along my journey, I met so many people who've changed their careers, and somewhat mildly. You changed dramatically, right? So you're an architect. What occurs to you that's like, no, this isn't what my life purpose is? How does that happen for you?
Yeah, it's a really interesting journey. And, as I reflect back on this, one word I can tell you is, I think, curiosity. So as an architect, I was always really curious about things. And I remember at the university, I was really curious about architecture, how it's connected to design, and all these philosophical architects, these big thinkers, basically. I was always attracted to those kind of people. But, after university, as I was chasing a definition of success, which for me, I was born in Hungary, and later on, I, just moved out to Germany to work there as an architect. And my biggest problem was, after university, working as an architect, I felt that I wasn't really earning the money that I thought I should earn, because architects and engineers were very much underpaid in Hungary. And so I thought to myself, as I, learned different kind of, basically two foreign languages, German and English, it meant freedom for me, learning languages and having this idea of moving abroad. And basically I decided to move abroad to work there as an architect. I started to earn the money that I wanted, and I could afford anything to myself. So basically I reached a point in my life where I saw that, earning more money won't bring happiness or fulfillment in my life. and I felt that I wasn't really fulfilled. And all this curiosity that was with me in the university was gone in my professional life as an architect. I landed in a very technical field, so I was working as a rather civil engineer than an architect. So I wasn't really in design, but it was more about technical engineering. And I was actually a sales support engineer and later on a project manager responsible for my country here in Austria, responsible for Hungary. And that was an exciting position and work, but I wasn't really fulfilled. And I just started to think about in the long run. So I didn't know too much about coaching, but I just asked myself, how do I see myself, 1 year from now, 5 years from now? Do I see myself working for this company in the long run, doing this activity that I do right now? And my answer was no. And observing my colleagues also in my environment, in my work environment, 40-year-old people, who were doing the same after 20 years, I just thought to myself, I don't want to do this. Like, I need to find another path. Mm-hmm. And this is how I started this personal development journey. And my desire back then was, because I felt in the corporate environment, I couldn't reach my full potential. I was in this box of a position, doing a certain type of activity, but I felt I was not really, reaching my full potential. And I embarked upon this personal development journey. And my first idea was, I want to start my own business, which means it was all about really bringing the best out of myself, being flexible, being free, and doing this stuff. And as I went deeper into this, entrepreneurial journey, I got really interested in the personal development aspect of becoming an entrepreneur, becoming successful, what success really means, what happiness is. And this is how I got really interested in and curious about the personal development aspect of it.
Great. Let's hold there for a minute. This is really great information. So, it's interesting. I had owned several of my own businesses, and then I went into corporate America for 5 years. I was president of a national healthcare company, making a lot of money with stock options and bonuses and all of that stuff. And one day I just realized the money, who cares? I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't really feel aligned with my passion. And I stumbled upon coaching. I literally did. I met somebody on a plane. They were a coach. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I'm supposed to do. Quit my job. And I've been doing this for 20 something years. And so what I say to people, and I kind of want to try this on, is no matter what you're doing, whatever job, whatever it is, if you're missing that inner joy, that to me is like, take notice and is your wake-up call. And that sounds very similar to what happened to you. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. And what's really important here to mention is that I felt when I embarked upon this idea of creating my own business and reality, I felt that I need to know myself more because I wanted to create something in the long run. So I was definitely thinking in the long run. So I felt that I need to know myself more, which is the personal development aspect of it, and need to know more about my values, who I really am, And so I started to really reflect and getting clear on my values. And some of them I already mentioned: freedom, flexibility, growth, for example, learning. I was always, just fascinated by learning. And I wanted to develop myself all the time. So I thought to myself, coaching and personal development, this is the never-ending path. I can learn for the rest of my life and never get to the end of it.
Beautiful. So, all right, now we pick coaching, right? So you pick coaching, I pick coaching. How did you figure out, I'm really going to go down the path of mindset, and why did you choose mindset?
Yeah, it's a really great question. Thank you for that. And the reason, because my, bigger, let's say, purpose is really to inspire people and show them that there are always possibilities. And I was asking myself, what gets in the way most of the time, that people are really struggling with transitioning, or they have this fear of changing, or really what gets in the way? So that was my question. And I figured, our mind gets in the way a lot of times
Mhm.
because, the brain's number one priority is to keep us safe, to keep us away, to prevent us from, change that can mean potential threat, for example. So the mind and the mindset is really important. It's not the only thing, because I usually talk about, of course, values, purpose, and passion, but the mind gets in the way a lot of times, and it can be fear, it can be limiting beliefs, something that is even unconscious and you are not aware of those things. So I always tell people the very first step is really the awareness part, that you reflect on your behaviors, and you become a little bit more aware of what you do, how you feel, different kind of things.
Mhm.
So this was my answer for your question, that this can be really important. I want to focus on this. And I was just fascinated by these new findings of neuroscience and new researches, that are coming out about neuroplasticity and all these things, that we can, just change our brain and become a new person whenever we want, basically.
Right. It's
Yeah.
interesting because that's a path that I'm really interested in as well. I'm a clinical psychologist also, as well as a coach. And I've been studying the human brain like for years. The human brain fascinates me. So what always is like amazing to me, whenever I start with a client, family member, I specialize in business and business growth, and they want actions. They come to me and they're like, all right, what do I have to do to grow my business and make more money? I'm like, all right, we're going to work on mindset. They're like, what? Why are we working on mindset? We start with mindset because the basis of everything that happens comes from mindset. So I love that you're doing this work. Let me ask
Yeah.
a question. Who is ideal? So if someone is watching us and listening to us here at Heartrepreneur Radio, Heartrepreneur TV, and saying, wow, I wonder if I actually need a mindset coach. I wonder if Tibor can actually help me. Who's an ideal client family member for you?
Yeah, I think it's can be used in different areas. For example, one is when someone is really transitioning from a completely different field to a new one, and they want to become entrepreneurs. This is one case when I work with people on mindset, and in that case, I usually work on vision a lot, so values, vision. Uh, and also mindset and strategies. So you mentioned strategies, actions are really important, all these things together. When we work on mindset, only on mindset, it's rather someone who's already a business owner, and they might want to scale their business, scale their impact. They want to reach higher numbers, figures, and the mind gets in the way. So limiting beliefs, they don't really believe in themselves. I don't really believe that it's possible, and so on and so forth. Because most of the time we have these beliefs based on past experiences and what we have achieved in the past, which is limited in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, Tibor, how can people connect with you? What is the very best way that they can connect and find out more? I want to make sure that they have that ability.
Absolutely. So the best way to go is mindsethorizon.com. This is my website. They can find my social platforms there. I use Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and also my podcast, the Mindset Horizon podcast.
Perfect. So mindsethorizon.com. I recommend that you actually make a note of that. If you're not in a place where you can write that down, that's actually pretty easy to remember. Mindsethorizon.com. So what
Absolutely.
the best advice that you can give someone who's tuned in to us right now and who's saying, I'm not really that fulfilled. I might want to make a change. And they have some fear about becoming a business owner and really following their passion. What advice would you give to them?
Yeah. It's a great question. Thank you for that. And the advice I would give is really to believe in yourself and to believe that anything is possible. You just need to decide what you really want. So you have to come up with a vision. You need to work on that. You need to decide and then work on your mindset, and you can achieve whatever you want.
And I'm going to completely say amen, and I agree with that. It's been amazing to me to watch different people on the journey, whether they're my client, family members, friends, or family. And I just watch people and who is achieving the things that they really want, whether it's in their personal life or their business life or with relationships or communication, whatever it is. And everything comes from mindset. And I'd like to share an example with our audience. So I was sharing with someone yesterday that I was able to shed a tremendous amount of weight in only 6 weeks by following a really easy, effortless program. And they said, well, what did you have to do? And I told them, and they said, oh, I'm not, and I'm quoting them, I'm not strong enough to do that. And I said, there's no strength needed. It's here. It's just simply saying, is this important to me? Yes, it is. And my mindset was, for 6 weeks, I will follow this. I will be successful. I will achieve my goals. And boom, easy, effortless, and it happened. And I just find it really interesting, whether we're talking business or relationships or finance or whatever we're talking, everything that people want to achieve comes from here. There is, as far as I'm concerned, no more important foundation than mindset. So the work that Tibor does is really, really important. And we said something in your introduction about, to go back to awakening your inner genius. So for someone who's listening and going, oh, I don't know if I have an inner genius, what would you say to that?
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, there's this definition of self-actualizing people. And, you know, I strongly believe that we are capable of things that we cannot even believe, you know, so we just need to reconnect with our deepest self, which is the higher self, right? And this is the inner genius that it's basically limitless, and it's connected to everything. It's not what you have accomplished or where you're from or what you have done or what other people think of you. It's all about this inner higher self that you can connect to anytime you want. When I do this is normally when I meditate in the morning or sometimes in the evening. This is when I connect with my higher self, and it's completely dissociated from who I am in this environment. It's a higher self. This is the inner genius.
I'm so glad you said that. So inner genius, higher self. And then you mentioned some things that you do in your personal life that, you know, I do something similar. Every single morning, I wake up very early because it's quiet. There's no one to interrupt or disturb me. I sit, I meditate, I set some daily intentions, and I just really tune in me. So can you give people a tip for maybe a good way to start the day?
Yeah, the way I usually start my day, I think it's a really good way, is really meditating, because this is so in the morning or in the evening, this is the time when your brain is normally in the alpha state, in a lower brain wave state, in an alpha. So you get into alpha and theta states more easily in the morning or in the evening. So that's why I do the meditation in the morning. And there are different kind of meditations. What I really like is the creative visualization during meditation, which is I visualize myself in a particular moment that I can decide which moment. So sometimes it's in the near future. Sometimes it's years from now, me talking on stage in front of hundreds of people. But you can visualize yourself in different situations. And there are two ways actually I do it. So there is this way when I dissociate myself from the picture and I look at myself from an outer point of view, and I see myself, my whole body, for example, on the stage, and I look at myself, and this is silent. This is a silent picture from an outside point of view. And then I step into that picture, and this is when I really experience that situation. When I'm talking on stage, I can I can hear people around me. I can see, I can smell, I can feel. This is when you get to feel the experience. And this way you have a thought and an experience, a feeling, which creates another state of being. Basically, I really get inspired when I have these meditations. It's a little bit visualization. So, it's not just focusing on the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
I start with focusing on my breath. So, I can be present. And then I start the visualization process. And I have this thought and feeling together, which shifts my state. And I get really inspired normally. It's a great way to start the day motivated.
And I'll say, there's so many different ways to meditate. Sometimes people go, I've tried it, I can't meditate.
Yeah.
So I had tried meditation for years, and I was like, okay, I'm focusing on my breath, and that didn't seem to work. And I tried all these different meditative programs, and I one day was walking, and I was all of the sudden, as I was walking, realizing, oh my gosh, I've been in a meditative state. Like it's the first time, and I wasn't consciously going, meditate. So you find what
Absolutely.
works for you. I also will use creative visualization quite a bit because I really enjoy it, and it keeps my brain active, and I have a lot of thoughts that way that really work in my business and in my life. So I'm just going to say to our audience, there's no right way to meditate. There's the way that
Absolutely.
You, and just having even a few minutes a day of that peace, of that quiet, of centered breathing. I think what happens in our lives, and see if you agree with me, Tibor, is we get so busy and there's so much stuff going on that we forget about ourselves, right? So when we start to just get present and quiet our mind, that's how we reclaim who we are. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, all right. So here we are. You've, made this transition, which I just love. Here you are as an architect. I call it, you wake up and you figure out what your inner genius is. And now you're helping other people do the same. Tell us a little bit about the Mindset Horizon podcast. So when people tune into that, and where do we find it? And when we tune into that, what kind of guests do you have? What are we going to listen to?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for asking. And people can find it on my website under the page podcast, and on iTunes and everywhere where podcasts can be found. And the main topic that we deconstruct in the podcast is really the belief system and the mindsets of disruptive entrepreneurs who think outside the box. So normally I invite coaches, change makers, but also entrepreneurs who has this conscious awareness of their path and becoming not just successful, but creating a life that serves their life's purpose. Really, that they feel that, wow, this is what I wanted, I'm really fulfilled. And we talk about these things. So we talk about a lot of things, mainly mindset, belief systems, but also passion, purpose, curiosity, all these things that I also experienced and other people can experience and have experienced. Yeah.
That sounds great. Worth tuning into. So mindsethorizon.com and Mindset Horizon podcast. And I do suggest that you tune in. I really believe that when you listen to podcasts, you also want to listen like kind of vicariously. What can I extract from that interview? So as we're here today and we're talking to Tibor, what has he said? Just take a moment and reflect for yourself. What has he said that perhaps you really needed to hear? Or is there something I said that you really needed to hear? How can you live vicariously through us? And then if you just listen and you go back to, your regularly scheduled life, nothing changes.
Yeah.
So what can you do to change? And one thing you can do is go to mindsethorizon.com. You can make a connection. You can also listen to the podcast, Mindset Horizon, and you can see if there's something that we said today that you need to take action on, whether it's meditate, slow down, breathe, really get honest with yourself. Is the work that I'm doing what I want to do? I remember coming to this point in my life where I woke up one day and thought, is this all there is to life? Going to work at a job every day
Exactly.
Helping this company make more money and going home? Or is there more? And that was my wake up call. Is there a particular question that like woke you up by any chance?
My question was actually, what do I really want? So, what do I really want to experience? At that time, I was focusing on my career, so I was really unfulfilled where I was working. So, my question was, what do I really want and who do I want to become? So, I had this vision of me. That was my question, like, who do I want to become in the long run? So interestingly enough, I saw myself, writing a book. Like, I really imagined myself, 20, 30 years from now, what is the profession that is worth, living this life,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Focusing on for the rest of my life. And I saw myself like as a thought leader, as a someone who is talking, who is writing. And this is just some kind of a vision, right? A vision doesn't really have to be specific all the time.
right.
Chunking down when you have goals, it can be specific, but these are just feelings and flashes. And I was contemplating on that idea. What if I am 60 years old?
Mhm.
What am I doing? Do I retire and that was it? And do I travel the world, or what do I want to do?
Brilliant. So I love that. So, what do I want to do? Who do I want to become? Those are such good questions. I really recommend
Yeah,
that not only does our audience write them down, I really recommend that you start as right there, thinking about
yeah,
where am I in my life today? And then future pacing, taking a look at a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I
yeah,
remember, so I started like 25 years ago in coaching, and I remember writing in a journal and saying, I want to travel the world and make an impact. I want to speak on stages all over the world. I want to write best-selling books. And friends would say to me, well, Terry, how are you going to do that? And I would say, I don't know. I just know I can see it. I can feel it. And interestingly enough, it's what I want to do, and it's
yeah,
who I want to become. And within a year, I had written a best-selling book. I was speaking on stages all over the world. And so all of those things come to be. You've got to start with a vision. And so I love
yeah,
what you're starting with. So let's tell
yeah.
people one more time where and how they can connect with you.
Yeah, so it's the best way to connect with me is my website. It's mindsethorizon.com. And they can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And they can find the links on my website.
Beautiful. First of all, I want to thank you so much for being a guest here at Heartpreneur Radio and TV. You've just added so much incredible value. So first of all, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And then I want to chat
Thank
with
you.
our audience for a moment. Listen, I don't care what you're currently doing. I don't care what your profession is. I don't care what your income is. I don't care what your success level is. I do care about what Tibor discussed today, which is finding your true self. So take a moment and get honest with yourself. What is it that you're chasing? What is your definition of success? Is it money? Is it having a lot more material things? Or is it something else? For me, it was having more of an impact, making a big difference, was having a lot more fun, a lot more freedom in my life, and a lot more connection. Then the next question to ask isn't how to do that, which is what so many people think. I've got to discover the how. It's who will I be when I make this change? So, for example, when I was in corporate America, I was being someone that wasn't authentic. I was being someone who was running a company that I didn't care about, that was just about a bottom line and was transactional. And I started our conversation today by talking about the concept of heartrepreneur. And heartrepreneur is truly what we're talking about here. It's figuring out who you are in your heart, what you want to do in the world that's going to make a difference coming from your heart, and then creating that most amazing best life. And Tibor said it earlier. we all have an inner genius, and awakening it is key. So, a couple of reminders as we exit. You want to listen to the Mindset Horizon podcast. And definitely, I strongly recommend that you go over to mindsethorizon.com, you make a connection with Tibor, and you really go back and you rewatch and re-listen to today's show, because, wow, there were a lot of gems that he gave us. So one more time, Tibor, thank you so much for being a guest here today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
You are most welcome.
You've been listening to Heartrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart, with your host, Terry Levine. This show is produced every week for your enjoyment and education. To make sure you never miss a single show, add us to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also read Terry's latest blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog, or follow Terry on Twitter at MentorTerry, and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terry Levine. Your questions and comments are always welcome and appreciated. Send them to Terry on either Facebook or Twitter. Thank you for listening.